A big thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this week's video.
In this video, what I want to do is go through some Lightroom tips that make a huge difference to your images, but I think a lot of people just don't know. Morning everybody, fantastic to see you all again. As you can see, I'm still here on the Isle of Harris shooting this amazing beach, this 30-day project. I'm going to show you some of the photos actually, because I've been editing lots of photos, and that's what triggered this video really. Because I'm editing all these photos, I just wanted to show you some of the tips and techniques that I'm using quite regularly, and some of the things that I think are lesser known as well. There's so many things on Lightroom. I also asked on Instagram if anybody else had some tips. I'm going to share those at the end of the video, and also some sort of quick fire tips as well, so stick around to that. And if you like the video throughout it, then give it a thumbs up as well, it massively helps. Okay, into the first tip. So one of the things that I do quite often is I go out and I'm shooting with my 24-200 or 24-70 or 24-120 lens. I get to a scene and something's happening and I want to shoot wider. And I do that by just shooting a pano, and Lightroom can stitch together a whole range of images. You don't just have to do sort of a pano across like that. You can do it vertically. You can do 2 rows in whatever way you want. Basically, as long as there's sort of overlap on your photos that you take, Lightroom will stitch it. So this is a good example here. I was shooting this scene, it was snowing, and I like this hook, but I wanted to go a little bit wider. And because I didn't have my other lens on me, I'd just taken this lens out just for a walk, I couldn't get any wider with my lens. But all I did is I just took a series of photos. So I went across and then I went down and back. And basically what you can do is you can just select these 8 images, right click, and then do photo merge panorama. And what that will do is it will then merge those images into a panorama. You can change the boundary warp if you think that it's not quite got it right and you want a little bit more at the top and bottom. You've got to be careful because it curves it a little bit funny. And then you can do auto settings or leave it. And once you've done that, you can click merge, and then you can see I've got this image. Now this image is a 200 megapixel image, so I can go and do lots of things with it. So I can crop in if I want. You can see it's snowing there. It's perfectly stitched, it looks fantastic, and I can then crop, and I've got a wider angle lens. So super easy. Again, this is another one. I wanted a wider angle on this, and to be honest, I just didn't want to change my lens. I didn't think it was worth it. So all I did was I shot above that particular image there, you merge it into this, and that's probably equivalent to about a 20mm lens. So super easy to do. Okay, the next one is the brush tool and how you can use it in masking by intersecting masks. It sounds complicated, but I use it all the time in so many different ways. So this is a good example. This was a scene right at the beginning of the trip actually, where I got these grasses moving in the amazing light. So if you're going to develop here, I can now go and say I want to just change the orange in this. So I could maybe go to color range and select orange, and this is then going to select all the grasses. I want to get all the grasses, but you can see it's selected the sky up here, and I don't want it to affect all that, so I want to make it a little bit more orange, but I don't want to change the color of the sky. So then what you can do is you can just press the Option key on a Mac, and then click intersect, and then intersect with brush. And what that does now is wherever I brush, I get that color change that I've made. So I can just brush and just apply that however I want, knowing that I'm not going to saturate anything more than what the settings I set, and I'm only going to saturate the orange colors in the scene, but I'm not going to affect the sky. Now I might want to do it to the sky as well, but it's just super easy to do. Again, with this image here, I want to change the blues. I want to make the blues a bit bluer in the sky, but I don't want to affect the sand. So a way to do that is you can go to the HSL slider here, and if I wanted to, I could just go to the saturation of the blue and change it, but can you see it's changing the sand as well, and I might not want to do that. So what you can do is you can just go to Add Mask, Color Range, choose the color. So I'm going to choose this color here of the sky. You can see it's selected a lot. I'm just going to reduce that so it's just on the sky. Now what I can do is if I just want to just make that a bit bluer, I can do that, and then again I can intersect with the brush, and then I can just brush it on where I think I want it. I don't have to put it on the whole sky, and it just gives me so much creative control. It's super easy, and it's a really powerful tool. You can do it intersecting with a gradient, you can intersect with luminosity masks, so useful to do. Okay, the next thing is a really quick thing. It's just compare view, which is actually new in Lightroom, which is really useful. So say I'm editing this image here, and I've already edited that previous one that I just showed. Then what I can do in the develop mode, you go into this reference view here. So I just click reference view, and then I can drag the reference photo up. So if I'm trying to get the colors right on a set of images that I want to be the same, then you can just copy the settings and paste it if it's a similar image like this. But if it's not exactly the same image, you might not want to do that. So now I can edit this active one, referencing this one. It's just really useful to do. I can say, okay, I'm going to just get the colors right, get the brightness right, and I can just mess about with it until I know that it's about the same. So it's really useful, especially if you're doing things for a book like I'm doing, where I want everything to just be exactly right. Okay, the next one references last week's video actually, which was about sharpening. A lot of people asked about sharpening in Lightroom and how you do that. The really simple thing that I do is use masking. So if you press Option when you move this mask, you see what is going to be sharpened, and I can see that all white means everything's going to be sharpened. So here I'm only going to sharpen the rocks if I go to this, and maybe the mountain range, but not the sky. So that means now when I'm adding this sharpening, I'm only going to be sharpening this area here. Now, like I say, you don't want to overdo this, but it just means that you don't sharpen your sky, because you just don't want to do that. So masking and sharpening, if you are going to add some sharpening afterwards, is a really great thing. Don't overdo your sharpening though. The next thing is something that, again, you might not know about. So there's a scene here, there's a sunset, and I might want to just make the oranges and reds in this pop a little bit. So you can do that by just adding saturation. That looks horrible, it's oversaturated. You can do it vibrance. It looks a little bit better, but I still don't like it. You can select the colors and add saturation by moving the oranges here on the HSL slider. Again, I don't really like that. You can use that, and I will use that on this image a little bit, but what I like to do is try the calibration at the bottom, and what this allows you to do is change the saturation of the blue part of the pixel. So a pixel is made up of a red, a green, and a blue primary pixel, and you can change the hue and saturation of those pixels making up the colors within your images. If you change the saturation of that blue pixel, you can see in where if I just hover over here, you can see how much of that blue pixel is being used on each pixel within your image. So there's 52% there, 80% there. You wouldn't think it, would you, that you've got so much blue in there, but you have. So by changing this, what I find is it gives a really subtle pop to those colors. And I always do that. I think it's just a great tip. Okay, on to the quick fire round. I asked on Instagram for some tips, and I'm going to share the tips either in a link below or in a feed sort of that just goes here as I'm talking about the other tips. Because there's lots of them and you can go and have a look at all of them. But I'm going to pick some out. So the first one is lights out mode when you're cropping. This was a tip from Matt. And basically, if you go to crop here, you can then go to L, which is lights out mode, and do your crop in lights out mode. And you can do it in full. I think this is really good because it means that you just get rid of all the distractions. So great tip, Matt. I didn't know about that. I knew you could go into lights out mode, but I didn't know you could crop whilst you're in it. So that's a good tip. A little bit similar to cropping, but zoom in. If you, on the Mac, press Command, and I don't know what the PC commands are, but if I do, I'll put them here. So you can zoom in. So you can press Command, and you can just zoom in an area. So say I want to have a look at this wave here. I can just do that. It's really, really useful. This was a tip from Sam. I had used this, but I'd forgotten about it. So thanks, Sam, for reminding me, because I've used it loads since you mentioned it. Okay, a lot of people mentioned this, and I knew about it, but I think I'll talk about it anyway. Jamie, Daryl, there's lots of different people mentioned it, and it's about using the AI masks. So if you're using any of these masks, like the select sky, select background, select subject, you've got to make sure you do your cloning before you do that mask, otherwise you get ghosting. So really, really important to clone out your spots before you do any masking. Okay, the next tip is the Alt or Option button. So whenever you're doing anything, so if I went onto this image here and I just wanted to say, look at the exposure, if I hold the Option button whilst I'm doing it, it tells me when things start to burn out, so I can go, okay, well that's going to be a better exposure. Now obviously it doesn't work for that image, but because I don't want it that bright, but you get the idea. It's a way of visualizing the burnt out parts of your image, but for all the different tools it does different things, so just try it, see if Option does anything when you move it. Thanks Andy for that. Okay, a tip here from Keith, which is really useful, and this is syncing settings. So say I have done some settings on here and I want to sync it to a photo that's similar. I can just select the other photo, go up here, click Tools, Settings, and click Sync Settings. And if you want to sync the masking as well, you can synchronize, and it does it. So I've now got that same edit on this photo. So I use this all the time when I've got a batch of photos that are all, the camera's in the same spot, the exposure's the same, I've done an edit, I want to see what it looks like on all the others. It's super useful. Thanks Keith for reminding me of that one. This next one's really useful. If you press caps lock, then when you rate the images, and you can rate them using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I rate this image now and I go, okay, that's a 2, it goes into the next image and I can say 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, and I can just go through and rate those images. So usually what I do with my images, I pick all the images that I think I'm going to have a look at, and then when I look at the pics, I rate those pics. I usually give them a 3, 4, or 5 star. It's super good to do that because it just means that it just makes your workflow a little bit quicker. Anyway, I hope those tips have helped. They're a bit of a random selection, but they're the sort of things that I've been using whilst I've been editing all these photos from this project that I've been doing now. The videos for this project are going to be a while because there's a lot of footage to go through. Me and Rick need to sit down, and we're going to produce in 2 or 3 short films from it, so they're going to be slightly longer videos. I'm so excited about sharing it all. It's been the most fantastic experience ever. I've seen all sorts of things, and there's going to be a book out as well, which will probably be out in May or June, I should think. I do want to thank this week's sponsor, and that is Squarespace. I'm also going to be producing a website specifically about this project, and I'm going to be doing that with Squarespace because it's super easy to do. If you want to just set up a quick website like that, then it's super, super easy to do. But if you're looking to register a domain, set up a website, or you want to set your own online store and start making some money from your photography, then go to squarespace.com/Nigel or use offer code Nigel for 10% off. Okay, that's it. Thanks ever so much for watching, and until next Sunday, bye.
It's not what we see, it's what we choose.